Hi, I'm Jeff. This is Tropical Plants at 53 degrees north, and today we're getting all carnivorous with the Venus flytraps, and we're going to do a repotting and have a look at it after its winter dormancy period. Let's get started. Okay, so we're in. So these two very sorry looking specimens are my Venus flytraps. I've only got two of them. I really like them. I see them as a bit of a curiosity. At the moment, have no particular desire to get any more, although having just been looking at some information on them, there are some really cool cultivars that I wouldn't mind having a look at. But these have been dormant. They've not really done much over the winter. As you know, I'm in the UK, the north of the UK, so we have a pretty cold, persistently dull, persistently low temperature kind of a winter, but not loads below zero. We do get frosty nights, but it tends to be short-lived, which is exactly what these Venus flytraps like. So my two, I can get that out, just bear with me. I've only just brought these inside. Like I said, they've been out all winter. So mine is a Dionaea Muscipula, I don't know how you pronounce that, Venus flytrap. Doesn't tell you anything else about it. These are obviously not the cultivars, just the species. There's only one species. It's a really rare thing, the Venus flytrap. Comes from some areas of Carolina in the US, and it doesn't appear to be anywhere else in the world. A really unusual curiosity. I'm going to tell you some things about it that I've found out, and I'm going to tell you some of its care needs and what I'm going to do with these now to kind of reinvigorate them. I get all my information about carnivorous plants. The fog has just kicked in, you have to excuse me. From this really cool book, The Savage Garden, definitely recommend it. Peter D'Amato. It's pretty much the Bible of carnivorous plants. So if you're interested in carnivorous plants, that's the book that tells you all about it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to set you up on the tripod, and we'll have a chat about it, and we're going to get on to repotting these two Venus flytraps, and as I say, I'll tell you a little bit about them as we do it. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to trim some of these moss stalks off, and just to make it look a little bit more presentable. The moss has flowered, and it's cool having it in moss. The moss does improve it, but as you can see, this is, like I say, you know, we're just coming out of winter. It's about where are we? About a week off the official spring equinox. We have had some good sunny days, but we've had quite a lot of frost over the winter. Nothing hard, not like a full day of frost, which is precisely what these like. They like warm summers where it can get quite hot, and they like chilly winters. Now these blackened ones, it's really tempting to just yank them off. This plant has a rhizome underneath, and it's surprising how they do cling to it. So it's better to trim them than to actually pull, unless of course they're so rotted they come away in your hand. I mean, obviously this is just after winter, like I say. I mean, I'm officially still in winter. I did let it flower last year, and that does weaken the plant a lot. I was aware of that. I just wanted to see what the flowers were like, and actually I cut the first ones off, and every time I cut it off it would send another one up. Now you can already see, if you get down into there are new growths coming already. Can you see those new ones? So it's obviously realises that it's coming into springtime. The temperatures are warming up, even though it's only 6 degrees Celsius today. We have had, yesterday it went up to 14, actually it might have been 16 degrees Celsius. And we've got some good sunny days forecast for the coming week. Although the forecasting it and actually seeing it is are two different things in this country. So it's already beginning to look a bit better. Try and trim this moss is going crazy. Moss is not something we're short of in the UK. they are under sycamore trees, so that wasn't actually a sycamore seedling, but I do tend to get sycamore seedlings in pretty much everything. So, okay, what have I found out from my little history book of carnivorous plants? Some new one, that looks like a new picture, a new trap there, see? They're amazing things, and I think probably the biggest disappointment when you first see them, you see pictures of them, the biggest disappointment is how small they are. You kind of expect them to be this big, huge, man-eating things, but when you get right up to them close, they are really incredible. And to watch them in action is just such a curious thing for us when we're used to plants kind of moving very, very slowly, and this thing just closes in a fraction of a second. It is an amazing thing. So what have I found out? So it was early 1760s when these were first brought to the public attention. I'm surprised it took so long, actually. I suppose that was the first time when newspapers were being printed and the like. But anyway, it was a North Carolina governor, Arthur Dobbs, who brought it to the public attention. And for quite a while, they only suspected they were carnivorous. Now, I'm not really sure what that means. Surely it's as clear as day. But it was Charles Darwin who actually proved they were carnivorous. He performed all sorts of experiments on them. He was fascinated by them. And he managed to get the traps to kind of be paralysed. I think he injected them with ether, if I remember correctly. Not sure what for. But he did perform extensive experiments on them, and he proved to the scientific community anyway that they were carnivorous in nature. And it was the very first plant ever to be suspected of being carnivorous in the kind of Western world. Anyway, I'm always curious, I'm always careful about saying these things, because I'm quite sure where these other carnivorous plants originate, that other people knew of this. It was just brought to the attention of the public, or brought to the attention of the scientific public. So that's looking a bit better. So this is going to be, I'm going to repot this. So the name, I'm not sure how you pronounce these names. One's Greek and one's Latin. So we've got, I think one's like a Latinized Greek. So we've got Dionaea, that's the way I pronounce it anyway, Dionaea, which comes from the Greek goddess called Dion, or Dion. And the Muscipula, that means mousetrap. That's Latin for mousetrap. So that's where that comes from. There's only one species. Lots and lots of cultivars, but not cultivars as you normally think of cultivars. We're not crossed species here because there is only one. The cultivars come from mutations. Some of these mutations are chemically induced. Some of them are just natural mutations that people have then taken clones of. The chances are that if you've got one of these kind of named cultivars, well, not the chances are, it's absolutely certain that if you have a named cultivar, it doesn't come from a crossing of species. It comes from some, either a natural mutation that's then been cloned, or some kind of chemically induced mutation, which I thought was quite interesting. There are some, like I say, there's some really nice varieties, some quite big pictured varieties with like really red inside. So I know this isn't looking its best at the moment, but as I say, it's been in its dormant period, and they do need a dormant period. I did keep these in the greenhouse for 1 year, and they were okay, but they do get weaker over time. Like I say, as you can see already, there are lots and lots of new leaves and traps coming. Talking about the traps, so this is the petiole, this bit, and obviously the bit at the end, the trap, that's the actual true leaf at the end. So it's a modified leaf which creates this incredible structure at the end. And the way they trap their insects, these traps, and none of them are open at the moment, but these traps are concave in form. and they have little hairs inside them, and scientists have figured out that you've got to either trigger 2 of these hairs together to make the trap close, or you have to, or an insect has to trigger the same hair more than once, at least twice, within 20 seconds, and that will also trigger the trap to close. And what happens is, electrical pulse gets sent through the leaf, and that makes the concave shape change to like a convex shape, I guess, and that closes the trap. Absolutely fascinating thing. But they don't totally close initially. They have little tiny gaps between these teeth, and I think it was Darwin that suggested that this was so the trap doesn't waste energy on tiny little insects, so they can crawl through. And if a trap closes and it's empty, then that means that, again, it's wasted its energy, so within 1 or 2 days it will open again. If there's something inside it, it will then secrete digestive juices, which will just leave a husk for when it opens again in about 4 or 5 days. To attract the insects, and boy, it does attract insects. I've watched it, I've spent many a happy time watching it munching away. There's one that's open. I'm not going to trigger it because, like I say, it's just coming out of its dormant period. It's actually eating itself there, look. Try to keep traps out of traps, but it's not always easy. There's that many. It also secretes a sweet nectar inside the trap, which attracts the insects. It's peculiar, really, that there's only this one species that only exists in Carolina. That in itself is peculiar. It's strange that it's not kind of evolved anywhere else. So, okay, what else have we got to talk about? I've got to do this one, yeah, haven't I? Blech. Right, so, it doesn't mind brief frosts. I have seen, where it's snowed on them. It's not snowed here this year, unusually. From what I've seen, they do tend to survive, unless you've got weeks and weeks of snow. But even then it might survive, but that's not what it gets in its native habitat in Carolina. It tends to get brief frosts, and then it gets quite warm summers. So where does it live? Well, it lives in boggy areas, it lives in peaty areas, which helps you to know what kind of media it likes. I've got it in sphagnum peat, or sphagnum moss peat. Could be any kind of peat, really, and they've done well in that. And mix it with a bit of perlite. That's what the book recommends, so that's what I did. It grows on the edges of swamps. It also grows in like wet grasslands as well. I believe it nearly died out in the wild in Carolina, but I think they've managed to get a few areas now to naturalise it. It'd be such a shame, wouldn't it? I mean, obviously people have got them in the greenhouses, but it's nice to have these things in the wild somewhere. Just taking all that moss off it helps, doesn't it? All the moss flowers. This one doesn't look... just pull one off. Doesn't look quite as good. Tell I'm not as careful on my second one. But again, if you look down into it, there are some new ones coming. Not quite as many as on the other one, but there are some new ones. Another one there. I'll just pinch my fingers. That'll probably do. Just get rid of some of that moss there. So, inside the pot, the roots, the leaves emerge from a rhizome. We're all used to rhizomes, aren't we, orchid growers? A short but thick rhizome is how it's described, and I can't remember it. I mean, this was, at the time when I bought this, I wasn't even writing on the date that I got it, so I've had it at least 2 years, and the recommendation is that you repot them every 1 to 2 years. But I was watching something from, I'm trying to think of the name, Matt Soper, who's a grower of these things, and he grows nepenthes and other carnivorous plants, Sarracenia and the like. and he reckons that they always do better if you repot them annually. So that's what I'm going to try and do. He says what tends to happen if you don't is the pitchers just get smaller and smaller and smaller, whereas if you repot it, it really does give it a boost. So I'm going to pot mine in sphagnum peat moss and some perlite. Same pot. I don't really see. Oh, no, I might go a little bit bigger. On them just to give them a bit more room. See if I can get any bigger plants, because they are supposed to go bigger than this, even though they're a small plant. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to mix up some compost, and then I shall come back to you. Okay, so we've got. I've done a mixture as recommended by the book I showed you at the beginning. So this is 4 parts peat and 1 part perlite, just measured out by hand, just kind of a guesstimate. This is sphagnum moss peat, but you know, any peat will do. You know, anything that's a peat based compost. And I've just stuck like a handful of peat in there. I'm going to go up a little bit in the trays. I'm going to, it's not a great deal, but in the pots, sorry, it's not a great deal, but it should give them chance to expand a little bit. They like to stand in a tray of water. Don't make the tray like too deep. You want it quite a small tray. They don't want to be absolutely sopping wet. They like to be damp rather than sopping wet. So it may be an idea to, you know, kind of let it dry, let the tray dry out for a day or two, just to prevent it getting too wet. Mine are very, very wet, I must admit. That might be partly why they're not looking that great at the moment. So let's have a look. Pop that in there. My problem is they're quite big holes actually. I might have to put some stones in, because that one's not so bad, but that one, they're quite large holes, so I might have to put something just to kind of stop it from falling through. Question is, what? Okay, so I put some crocks in the bottom just to stop the peat falling through, because the holes are quite big there. And if I didn't, then all the peat and the perlite would fall through, which would be no use, as the pot would go empty. So let's have a look at these things, see if we can find the rhizome. Now they are very, very soggy. Now, what I'm going to do is cut away and pull away all this soggy mess. If I can, I might even pull away some of this moss, because it'll soon come back again. Like I say, moss. Oh, there's a worm in there as well. Get rid of that thing. And there are the roots. Oh, look at that, lovely. Now I guess this is an opportunity to divide, because you can divide them. Aha. These are dividing quite naturally. So let's see. Now the question is, do I want lots of separate ones, or do I want like a nice big a bunch of rosettes? It's a good opportunity as well to pull away some of the dead stuff. There I can see one of the old flower spikes there. I'll chop that off. Of that's not doing much. I think what I'm inclined to do is to still put them in the same pot, because I don't really want lots and lots of separate ones at this point in time. I would like some other of these cultivars. I think there's some giant ones I've seen. I mean, you know, don't get carried away, they're not that giant, but they're bigger than this. Brad's you want to look at, he sells them commercially, doesn't he? So he's got all sorts different ones. So that just lets me clean them up a bit more. by doing that. And I'm going to stick them back in the same pot. I don't really want, like I say, I don't want separate ones unless they're different. Okay, excellent. Right, let's get them in there. What I should have done, he says, just an idea, is this peat, because it's been sitting in the greenhouse for 12 months, it's very, very dry. Although it won't take long outside in the UK to get wet. It'll be wet in no time. In fact, this afternoon should do it. Forecast rain all afternoon. That's why I'm in here. I'm not out gardening. Right, so that's one done, and I will do the next one on a time lapse because you've seen it once already. Okay, so there we have it. Now what I'm going to do now is I'm going to relabel them. I'll put the date on the label when they were repotted. I will take them outside and I'll give them a good watering and get all this peat moss off the traps and off the leaves, which will make them look infinitely better. And they're going to sit in a tray of water, and they can stay outside now. Well, they've been outside all winter, like I say, so they can stay outside. I'm not going to do anything else with them, and that is that. And hopefully we will have some better looking specimens in a month or a few weeks. There's a few things I've not mentioned yet. So we talked about media, we talked about light, like full to part sun. Temperatures we've mentioned. Dormancy, they do need this dormancy. If I've not mentioned this already, if they don't get it, then they do tend to go weaker and the traps are smaller. Feeding, they feed themselves. Don't worry about feeding, providing they're outside. If you do have them inside on a window ledge, then you are going to have to feed them with something, whether it's dead flies or live flies or whatever you can catch, but you are going to have to feed them. But do not fertilise them. You know, don't get your orchid feed or your plant food and water them with it. They'll find their own food, and that's it really. Oh, pests. They are susceptible to aphids. Although having said that, even though we've got aphids all over the place here, I've not yet encountered any aphid problems. But that might be something to come in the future. They'll look much better once they've been washed off and some of these new ones have come up. You'll find that all these older ones will die off in a few weeks and the new ones will come through. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please subscribe if you're not already. Give us a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. If you didn't, give me a thumbs down. I don't mind which. And I will see you on the next one. Bye.